was tough. During the negotiations, it was tough to be at the table for that length of time and saying this was confidential. And then when we would make reports, like in my case, I reported to my community on all occasions, and always said to them, this is confidential. Any information I gave to them, it was confidential. And it's interesting that our people kept that. And there was not phones ringing off the hook that, you know, how these negotiations are going and so on and so forth from people that may disagree with this agreement or want no more information. Of course, then confidentiality would have been broken. There is nothing confidential that are hidden in these agreements that is a surprise, because there is no language of surprise in the chiefs. They're totally upfront and on being honest with the people. This is it. So with that, I wish you the best when you go for voting on April, when you go to vote on April 9th. It's really your decision to move forward. Whatever your decision is, we, the chiefs, accept. We are, of course, for the agreements, and myself as the chair, I am for these agreements. And I believe that these agreements are good for the people. But again, it's up to the people to decide that. So when you go and vote on April 9th, you know, like I've said in many meetings, is vote with your heart. You know, if you can't get the technical answers, sometimes it's good to go with the heart and feel that out when you go to the booth, and your heart will tell you, and always does. It never fails. And so I myself, I live by those 7 things I go and talk about: title and rights, declaration, and generations, and those issues. Are they upheld within this agreement? And that's what guides me. It's not the technical parts of the agreement that guide me. Not the money at all. The money does not guide me on my decision to promote this as a positive agreement. If there's a yes vote, which I hope there is, BC Hydro is totally committed to these agreements. They went through great lengths to ensure that these agreements were written in a manner that they could honor. So it's not a one-way street. 2 sides were sitting at the table, bargaining and negotiating their points, coming out with an answer that they both can agree to. Hydro always had to go back to ask their management if they could live up to these sections that were being placed into the agreement. And if it was a yes, then it went in. And the same as on our side, we would go back to the leadership and ask them, can we live up to these agreements as they're written? And of course, we've agreed. So this is going on for a number of years. Every section really went back and forth between their management and our leadership. So as we compiled this agreement, and our lawyers also made sure that the agreements are written in a manner that makes people accountable, legally, professionally, and so this agreement is a new one. Everybody has to follow certain protocols, certain agreements that are laid out in the agreement. If anyone was to breach, whether it's our side or their side, that is also dealt with in this agreement. So there are these safety checks throughout the agreement, checks and balances, if you want to call it, that does not allow someone to go off and just simply breach it and figure that they can get away with that. There's actually a very narrow process that we have to make sure that people on both sides of the table honor this agreement. It's very clear. If you breach it, there's a process for dealing with that. And so Hydro is just not going to go off and breach this agreement. First of all, it could be too costly for them. It would be disrespectful, and I think we've achieved a level of respect between both parties. And I don't think we're going to go out of our way to take that apart, because we want to go back to the old ways of doing things. That's not in the cards. So we'll know on April 10th whether we have a successful vote on that day, whether people have said yes to it. And if people have said yes to this, we have so much work to do. Governance, right on April 11th, we begin the work that is necessary, the intense work that is necessary to meet the 60-day period once it's initialed. Because the government has to be up and running. And the people will be informed as we're going along as to how this is developing. So giving people assurance that once the implementation takes place, that it's going to be done properly. And if there's a no vote, the world doesn't end. I mean, we all know that. But it just means that we're back to the drawing board, square one, because there is no mandate on both sides to continue post April 11th if there's a no vote. So I'm hoping that the agreement that the chiefs have negotiated is something that the people can live with and be proud of. And I hope that we, as the leadership, are given the go-ahead to sign the agreements on May 10th, 2011. It was exactly 100 years from the day that our ancestors signed the Declaration asking for a measure of justice. This is a small measure of justice. I must remind the people of that. That's only a small measure of justice. We have many, many other issues. The leadership wants to move on and start tackling those issues in a good way. This agreement is definitely about all St'át'imc people. The agreement is there to service all our people, regardless of their residence, and as long as they're of St'át'imc, as long as they're St'át'imc. And I'd like to ask people to get away from the frame of mind that this is something like an Indian Act service or program. Like the Indian Act specifically, in many cases, is for on-reserve populations of the St'át'imc. This agreement goes way beyond that. And I'd like the people to acknowledge that for the first time in our history as a people, we're signing something that will benefit everyone. And that's very important for people to understand.